How's the tour going? Are you used to being this sort of nomadic existence now?
We have gotten used to it and then unused to it and then used to it. We've just been on the road for a couple of days now, so
Okay.
we have yet to get used to it again, but we're excited.
I noticed there was a lyric at the beginning of the new album about getting depressed in fancy hotel rooms. Can't be too bad in fancy hotel rooms, surely. Are you in fancy hotel rooms at the moment?
No, not at the moment. That's a very old reference.
Okay.
Yeah. To it.
So that's a good thing then, if you're not in fancy hotels.
It's a good thing, yeah. Yeah.
I love the new album Creations. It's incredibly inventive and ethereal. And it's fantastic. It's been 3 years since the last one. Was that a process of sort of writing and writing and then cutting down for the new album, or was it just these songs that really stood out for you?
There was a lot of songs, like 40 songs, and these were our favorites.
And how is that process of writing? Do you just sort of go in and say there's no constraints, and then what sort of criteria would you use to get those 12?
Well, we do work on having no rules or making rules that confuse us and bring like a brand new mentality. For the writing of this record, almost everything was really improvised.
Yeah.
So that's kind of special, not preparing anything
Absolutely.
before you go in to sing on the microphone, play an instrument.
And I think you worked with is it the pianist Gael for this record as well.
Mm-hmm.
Was that different for you to be working with a third person, not just the two of you?
It was completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very luxurious,
Yeah.
I think there's more weight, more narrative weight in the musical arrangements, opposed to the past where we imply it in very different ways, like sonic landscapes and things like that. So
It's interesting you talk about sort of sonic landscapes, because I read that you started recording this album in Buenos Aires. Is that right? And then you recorded bits in different places. And I thought that was interesting because I think your music's so sort of otherworldly. It's almost like you take your music with you as you go. I'd have thought, but did you find that, or did you find that each place did sort of have its own influences on you with the songs you were recording there?
no, you're very right. We carry our world with us, and the studios have no windows, and we really lose track of night and day, and lose a lot of sleep during these blocked off studio periods, and we really can't trace actually where we made which song.
Yeah.
Also because we reapproached each song in every studio pretty much, so they have a little bit of all those places, but more so than the places, it's the instruments and the sort of specialty vintage equipment that we found in different studios. So it doesn't really expand beyond the walls of the space in a physical sense.
And did I read somewhere as well that you've also been working on a film project as well over the last few years?
Yeah, we're always taking a lot of pictures and making films, but we worked on a more traditional type of film in the last year in the spring. Just starring the two of us and a lot of animals.
And is that to do with this sort of the artistic personas? I mean, I have to ask you about the album cover for the new album, which obviously you have the sort of personas there. Was that related to the film project?
No, not really. Our personas are morphing all the time, and the film is featuring Rupert and Rapunzel, which is pretty different from our from the characters on the record cover. During the end of making the record, we got really into fashioning ourselves after elemental beings, and thinking very post-human, and what sort of ethereal beings will be taking back the earth, and what will they be wearing, and started making things by hand, and getting more into kind of ancient types of crafts, and working with nature.
Yeah. It seems as well like that playing with gender roles is a part of those characters as well.
Not. It's kind of after that in a way. I think our vision of the future, and then the way the fairies fashion themselves is the gender lines are a lot more ambiguous. For us in the record cover, we're very glamorous. I think pretty feminine and glamorous, and
Except for the bits.
well, it's more like design, like looking at the way that the fashion exists in nature. You don't really differentiate like a hairy fern and a non-hairy fern, or certain flowers, masculine and feminine. Some male birds have like the brightest plumage, So it's kind of abandoning the human ideas of gender and gender.
Yeah, and sort of leaving all that behind. Because I was going to ask whether you considered yourselves to be sort of feminist and feminicized, because I've read that you sort of feel that you're providing an alternative to sort of patriarchal society in your music.
Well, I don't think we have much of a choice, just inheriting female bodies. We don't really have a choice but to be feminist. Otherwise, we would be, just sort of like hating ourselves. So.
And I read as well as the sort of the patriarchal and the heteronormative that I think you seem to struggle against and present alternatives to. Also in terms of religion, and you talk about moving away from sort of this monotheistic view of religion. And I think one of the songs that was a real touchstone, I think, for this record is God Has a Voice, She Speaks Through Me, which is a single that came up before these. How do you sort of view religion and view the relationship between religion and your music?
Well, we come from a very kind of conservative type of artistic background, which is viewing art as really the link between humans and God. And just to put it simply, creativity is really our religion. And having the intervention of another human being, facilitating your dialogue, your personal dialogue with the cosmos is a threat. It's very destructive from our point of view. So, it's just about a personal empowerment and personal myth, and just manifesting that and discovering that through creativity, basically.
It's interesting that you say that you're brought up in that sort of almost a conservative, with a conservative view, because I think there's a strong sort of childlike voice to this new record, and sort of playful in many ways, but also I think the influence of your parents is something that's been talked about with this record, and obviously there's the sample of your mother singing on Undertaker. So how do you think the sort of, your parents' views, your father with his sort of shamanic background, how do you think their views sort of work their way into this record?
Well, I think we've been discovering and rediscovering through our music in recent years a lot of the spiritual qualities of our childhood, ritual and fasting and sort of worshipping of nature, anti-materialism. A lot of that we've been rediscovering for ourselves and starting to really appreciate.
Yeah.
Appreciate that we were exposed to that. We were exposed to that point of view. We didn't have to like really fight and struggle to discover that for ourselves.
But do you think do you agree that there's that playful sort of fun element to the way that you make music and maybe sort of find sounds and bring different sounds together? Do you think that's there as well?
Definitely. We like to mix it up and we like to fuck things up a little bit, you know, if they're too smooth or if they're making too much sense, then I think we lose interest a bit. So
yeah. Do you ever sort of make a song and then think that's too simple, we've accidentally written a 3-minute pop song. We want to do something more interesting.
Not quite. No, I think it's pretty funny when we try to make pop music. It comes out pretty wrong. I mean, I think of our music as very pop. It's just not quite there, you know, and that's just I think that's just our style, you know.
But you also managed to bring in all the sort of the different experiences you've had, because I think, am I right, you trained as an opera singer? So how do you think that sort of manifests itself on the new record?
I don't know. I have yet to really indulge that fetish of mine and bring into play my classical technique, or the residue that still exists there from my earlier years of studying classical music a little bit. But I did experiment with some arrangements that came from kind of an ancient, possibly an ancient era, maybe from a Baroque fantasy, like in the song "The Moon Asked the Crow."
Yeah.
The tapestry of sound from that was created all with voice, and so I kind of tap into that realm from time to time, I guess.
And was that an element that came in with the sample of your mother singing as well, building those sort of tapestries of sounds and found sounds as well?
I think time travel has been a really important part of this process, for this record especially. So traveling to different eras and crossbreeding a kind of a futuristic sci-fi fantasy with something that we feel is very ancient, and so kind of a time travel thing happened a lot throughout the record.
But also perhaps travelling back through your own lives as well. I think there's a few different stories there on the record.
You know, we had kind of a horrible time, like when we were, or we thought we did. It's funny when you're a kid and you think you're having a bad time or a good time, and then you look back on it later and it sort of changes. But we were isolated a lot and didn't have toys, and we didn't have TV, and there wasn't a lot of friends around either, because we were in kind of bizarre, isolated locations.
Yeah. But were you in nature a lot? It
we
seems
were
like you still have this love of nature.
We were in nature, and also just wastelands, you know, where I mean I think it's very constructive for building the imagination. I give a lot of credit to it now, and I plan to isolate my kids in a wasteland. But in Arizona, we drove around the desert in old cars. We were much too young to drive, and we were shooting rabbits with BB guns and skinning rabbits and eating rabbits and exploring old trailer homes, abandoned houses. And it's interesting. I mean, it was kind of like a very torturous time in our childhood, and I find that we're looking back on it as our most exciting memories now, you know, in the most poetically rich material that we have stored inside of us. So.
And yeah, perhaps the sort of the beginnings of the world that you're sort of creating now with your music and with your art as well. Because I think obviously there's a very visual element to the sort of personas, perhaps your on-stage personas and your artistic personas on the record sleeves and that sort of thing. Do you feel like you're influenced by other art forms as well as perhaps other music?
Yeah, there's no real segregation for us. I mean, Sierra always sang and was more like drawn towards music and performance, various types of performance, dance and theater, and I was more of an introverted type of artist, and writing and photography, drawing, etc. But when we combine, there's all of the mediums are pretty much activated. So we think visually a lot. You know, when we're working on music, we're often meditating on an image, or describing a place, like describing a planet or a very specific location, and you know, it's really trying to extract the essence from that place. So we're dreaming of things visually often first, before we try to understand what it sounds like.
Does that come across in your live performances as well? You know, the incorporating different instruments and different types of musicians. I think do you have a beatboxer with you at the moment?
We have a beatboxer, and we recently built a drum set out of found things. We like to do beach combing and swamp combing and stuff like that. So we got a bunch of old things out of a swamp and
Strung them together in an old baby carriage.
Okay.
And it's kind of magical. Making your own drum set has, especially when you have a very alternative, open-minded drummer behind it. Something, I don't know. It really stimulates us. It's something that makes us like romantically awake when we're playing music, and because we kind of hate traditional rock drum kits.
Yeah.
But a couple of times we tried to incorporate that into our music. It was a disaster.
It didn't work out.
But we love beats. We love rhythm, and you know, it's really wonderful now having it as a part of our live show. But it took a while to figure out how to make that work for us in our own world. You've got a few shows coming up. You're playing ACP, I think. Are you looking forward to that show? Yeah, I mean, you know, festivals are always really fun and always like a bit of a disaster too, and but it's nice. It's like it's just a completely different thing from a regular venue gig. Mm-hmm. Everything's like more fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing. So,
which is good for us.
Yeah.
We like being surprised and a little on edge, and I think it's usually pretty fun for our music. I mean, doing makeup, I think the best makeup we do is like 2 minutes before the show, just like, you know, and going out onto a stage unprepared. That energy is great for music, you know. So I think we've done some of our best shows in a really chaotic, big festival.
So is that something you sort of try and replicate when you're on the road, or do you find yourself sort of falling into the patterns and routines when you're just doing a regular tour?
We keep it. We change it up a lot. Like, I kind of every day we approach the whole situation anew. Sometimes that can be like confusing as well, because we like suddenly don't like any of our clothes and don't identify with any of our hair pieces. And just like, who are we? And just like, it's not really about looking good. It's about being in the mood and that's the bottom line, really. Being in the mood.
So do you think that sort of process of renewal of saying, oh, hang on, none of this stuff sort of suits us anymore, we need new ideas and to bring new things in, do you think that's the way that you renew yourselves and the way you
definitely
keep moving forwards?
That's our whole relationship to fashion and to makeup. That's it right there. It's about renewal and transformation and just self-romance, So we run off to the nearest dollar store if we have to, and it's usually a good place to start.
And so what does the future hold for Coco Rosie? What do you think the next sort of renewal will be?
That's always the untold story for us, and we're kind of anti-futurists actually.
Yeah.
Which makes it hard for making plans. We don't really believe in the future, and so. I think we look backwards a lot, but like we're way backwards, trying to imagine our past lives. That's kind of what we're up to too when we're getting dressed. We're like trying to tap into something that's from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think we're not that interested in the what you see around you.
So it's always looking back to the past, or sort of forwards to sort of post-humans and
just looking.
You got it.
Looking. Yeah, you mean you go so far back that you go all the way around.
Cyclical.
Yeah.
Cycle.
Yeah. The timeless.
Timelessness.
The timelessness.
The ness stuff.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for speaking to you today. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.